Back in those days, there weren't people using face masks or with fear in their eyes. Those days only consisted of happiness and innocence. We as the boys of the neighborhood considered our group as the only people in the world. How wrong we were. When the rumor of a new disease named the coronavirus set foot in our environment, causing a global pandemic around the world, only gave me a sense of helplessness. As today is the day that I meet the love of my life. I haven't seen her since our middle school graduation. Now she is probably a college graduate. I have been preparing for this day for years. As I walk the streets I used to walk down as a young boy, I notice some things have changed and some haven't. The feeling of seeing her again turns my stomach upside down. I begin to remember how our story began, as my mind went back in time. It was always frightening for me to walk down that road because of the stories I had heard of the tree next to Tripa's home. As I said, a man appeared at night hanging from one of its branches. Some people said that they had seen him in the morning on my way to middle school. Had to go by that same exact place, and as it was still dark, I had to pray a lot before passing. I begged God not to put him in my way because I would faint or die of fright. That day I felt differently. I thought I could conquer my fears. It was about 6 in the morning, and far off I could hear people waking up the kids to go to school. I would get up earlier because I had to go farther. I walked slowly, looking from one place to another, and if any movement in the air made me immediately turn to see if it was a hangman. And precisely when I turned around to see the branches moving, I would start running fast to school. But that morning I stood still and saw him there for a moment. His eyes were bulging and his skin was very pale. I stood there dumbfounded, and then I began running like a bat out of hell, and even forgot to pick up Tofo, who also went to my school. And when I got to the Parque Naranjo, I remembered, but was too scared to go back at that time, so I continued my way to the middle school that's near the Benito Juarez Square. Could I have only imagined if it was it true? There was a hanged man. Now if somebody told me, could I have only imagined it, or was it true? There was a hanged man. Now if somebody told me about him, I would be able to say I saw him. So I felt braver. But nobody could take away the fright. So many years of running away from the legend that now I felt happy if it was true. Even though I would have to have been more careful in the future, I would have to get to school by another route to avoid seeing him again. Even though I would have to walk 3 more blocks, it was worth it. Because then I would not see the man. What if he grabbed me and did something bad to me, like kill me or something like that? It would be the best to take a longer way. I would do so from that day on. Without noticing, I arrived to school. Some other kids were already there, and I stood by the door to wait for Tofo. Surely he had overslept. I would wake him up sometimes when his alarm clock didn't work. Meanwhile, I talked with Tommy about football. He was a reinforcement for our neighborhood's team. Even though he lived in another neighborhood, we sneaked him out. We sneaked him on our team because he was very good. He brought us Victor and George, and with them, we had one of the strongest teams of the Alleys League, as we called the place where we played on Sundays. We belonged to the intermediate league, 14 to 15-year-olds. Before they joined our team, we had lost 5 games in a row, but since then we started to pick up and already won 8 games, lost 7 and tied 2. The kids from Sauces, Privada, Gonzalez, and those from Zaragoza respected us. Tommy asked me if I liked the 2 goals he had scored last Sunday. Sure, I answered immediately. I love the goals we score. Even though we were not close friends, sometimes we talked, mostly about football, because I had always been a little shy. When Tofo arrived, we went to the classroom, and on that day I told him about the hanged man. He just opened his eyes wide and said, "You really saw him, Calavera?" "Yeah, and I got really scared. That's why I didn't come and pick you up. I ran like the wind. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up." "Well, Calavera," he said, smiling, you have always been a scaredy cat. Maybe you just felt him but didn't see anything. It's only a superstition, and because you've heard it so many times, you think you saw it, but it's only in your mind." I didn't want to contradict him because we hate fighting, so I told him he was probably right. "Did you prepare the history lesson we have to present?" He asked me now in better spirits. "Remember, you promised me to do it alone." He laughed slowly and said, You need courage to give the lesson in front of everyone, as if you were the teacher. Of course, it means you'll be getting a better grade, but the nerves of standing in front of the whole class, I couldn't do it." "At least I'll try," I answered. "I studied the Mexican Revolution well. I think I'm more or less ready. I hope it comes out today. There's nothing to lose." "Okay, good luck." Everyone in the class was talking when the history teacher came in. His name was Alonso. He spoke up. He spoke to us with great respect and was always telling us endless stories he seemed to make up himself. Once he had told us he had gone hunting in the Once he told us he had gone hunting at the Lacandona. Oh my goodness. Once he told us he had gone hunting at the Lacandona rainforest where there was a great deal of vegetation, lots of snakes and poisonous spiders. The more he told, the more scared we got. He said there were special suits to walk through the jungle to avoid mosquito bites that can only spread some kind of virus. When they took those special suits off at the end of the day, after hours of wearing them, they had lost about 5 kilos. We opened our eyes in amazement and begged him to tell us more, but he answered that he would be another day. Afterwards, when we went into another classroom, we heard him repeat the same story full of details in other classes. He had a very good memory because he didn't leave anything out. When he asked me if I was prepared to give the class, I thought I would surely pass out right then and there in front of everybody. But then I realized I need the points for my scholarship, and I would really need them when I graduated from middle school. In 3 weeks' time, it would be more complicated. If it was hard for me to buy school supplies now in high school, I would need help because my parents were so poor that they couldn't help me even if they wanted to. And they might ask me to drop out of school to work full-time as a handyman in the Colonia del Valle. So I really needed those extra points. Sure, teacher, I'm ready. I answered with confidence that came deep from within me. I began by saying that Porfirio Diaz and his group had ruled the country for many years and people had become overwhelmed because of their power. Along with the money and the lands belonged only to the rich. Everyone looked at me in surprise. It was the first time someone had the courage to give a class alone. I had been preparing in the library for several afternoons. I felt confident. Everyone stared at me with mouths gaped open and nodded at everything I said, as if confirming that I was right. Nilo smiled, but he wasn't making fun of me. I think he was enjoying himself. Tommy was sitting back in his chair and looked at me with a serious expression on his face. But it was Maricruz I didn't want to look at, sitting in the first row, the smartest in the class, and one that would cry if she got a 9. I looked at her to see if it was for the first time in 3 years. Her fair eyes wondered me with a glance. And there she was, paying attention. Her expressive eyes made me nervous, and her blonde hair was sensational. She was always so well-groomed compared to some of us who didn't even have a good haircut. Seeing her at an instant for just a second was worthwhile. I'll never forget that moment. She wore her uniform, a red skirt with a white blouse, red blazer, and white socks. Her clothes were always spotless, and her fair skin and full lips made me yearn for her the 3 years we had classes together. But I had never built up the courage to speak to her. I felt sad time was running out. In 3 weeks' time, school would end. And she would surely study another high school. Not the one I planned to attend, if was able to afford it. I felt helpless and didn't turn towards her again, since I was afraid she would see in my eyes all the tortured nights I had spent thinking of her. Instead, I concentrated to the lesson. I told him that Pancho Villa, attacking from the north, and Emiliano Zapata from the south made an alliance that turned into the people's victory over the oppressor. Then I finished the lesson, and I told them that was it. The teacher said I had done a great job and applauded, and everyone followed. I was a bit embarrassed, but at the same time I felt very proud that they had taken note of what I had done. We studied in groups for the remainder of the class. Tofo only wanted to talk about soccer, even during classes. Nilo did too, and Tommy, who complimented our team, was also a huge soccer fan. So time passed for us between studying and playing. When the bell rang, we ran out to play, and because soccer was our favorite sport, we played the whole half hour. Tofo was not a very good player. He only kicked the ball around. We called him the Texan because he always wore Western-type boots and he hit us hard. I like to dribble and swerve, pass the ball and make some plays, practice and prepare for Sunday when we played in the alleys. That day, I think not everyone liked my lesson because I was controlling the ball. I felt someone trip me and I had an ugly fall. I stood up and saw it was Nilo. I stood up in front of him and told him to be more careful, and he didn't answer. He just turned around and kept on playing. Afterwards, when I was about to shoot for the goal, I felt an intentional kick, not on my ankle, but on my thigh. I turned around angrily and saw that it was Nilo again. I didn't say a thing. Instead, I started throwing punches at him, like the ones I saw on the Saturday morning shows on TV. We hit each other hard, but for some reason I felt more punches than those he was giving me. I turned around and saw that Tommy was also hitting me. I was so busy with Nilo that I hadn't noticed. I also tried to hit him, but it was useless. Between both of them, they gave me an awful beating. My bottom lip was bleeding and one eye was really swollen, but what hurt more was that they betrayed me. I walked to the water tap and washed out the blood from my mouth, tears streaming down my face in anger, but I didn't want anybody to notice. Those bullies really hit you hard, didn't they? She said in an angelic tone. It was Maricruz, who had seen everything. But you're really brave. You stood up to both of them. It doesn't matter. It's not that bad. It's already getting better, I said, trying to be strong. I wiped off my tears as fast as I could, and I didn't want her to see me cry. She didn't know anything about me, and I didn't want her to think I was a crybaby. Also, I don't want to be taken to the principal's office because of the fight. I could get expelled, and I want to go on to high school. I like that in other young people, that they want to better themselves, she said. When I finally had the courage to look her in the eyes, I was afraid that she would see in mine all the years I had been admiring her, but I could not look away because from the moment I saw her eyes for the first time, I felt completely overcome by an incredible force. What would you like to study in high school, Jesus? I think I'll study to be a civil engineer. Hearing her say my name made me shiver. She knew my name. Thousands of times I had asked myself if she at least knew what my name was, and she did. That made me feel like I was somebody. With the way things are right now at home, I don't know if I'll be able to study, and my family is having a hard time, and I would like to help them somehow. Maybe if it would be better if I got a job. She remained silent for a while, and I thought our conversation was over. But you can't help more if you study. You could offer them much more if you go to college. She got excited when she spoke up. She had beautiful feelings. I used to think she was out of my league. Now I felt it even more because with my shyness, I had never won anyone's heart, not even in the ugliest girl in the neighborhood. So what chance could I have with her? I never thought you spoke such beautiful words in an outburst from my shyness. And in my desperation, I gave it my all and looked for a way to thank her for trying to comfort me, as one comforts a stray dog, for encouraging me, because who would ever notice a tall, lonely, skinny kid with pimples on his face? Who could be interested? Thank you for lifting my spirits. I feel better now after speaking to you. I don't want to sound forward, but I would like to invite you to the Plaza Juarez after school to talk, maybe just a minute. She didn't answer right away. She just looked at me for the first time, and I could see her hesitation. Sure, it's only 1 o'clock, okay? Or is 1 o'clock okay? She said with a smile. I'll be there, and if you don't come, I understand. I said because I had the feeling she wouldn't show. When the bell rang for us to go back to class, the whole morning I worried that I didn't have a single peso to buy her something. I felt even poorer. I didn't know what I would talk about. I had never been on a date before, so I was really in uncharted territory. I'll think of something, I said to myself. I arrived in the plaza at 12:48, more scared than convinced. For a moment, I felt like a fool, waiting there, even though I knew she wouldn't come. But I had some hope because she said that she would, so I waited. I was deep in thought when Angel arrived. He was a shoe-shine kid, older and bigger than me. He came by and said hello. I shoe-shined on Saturdays and Sundays. He asked me if I was there to steal his customers. He was always kidding, and we were good friends. I told him I was waiting for a girl, and he gave me a sly look. You've got a girlfriend? He said, laughing. His front teeth were big. He was very skinny, and his bones stuck out. He was even skinnier than myself. That meant he was really puny. You rascal, you. She's a friend. Besides, we're only going to talk. I answered seriously, because I didn't want him to get into the wrong idea. Maricruz deserved all my respect. She's very special. You got any cash? He asked. His kind eyes told me he was willing to give me what he had in his pockets. I shined some shoes today and I can help you. Of course not, I answered quickly. Sure, we were friends, but money matters are another thing. If I didn't earn it, it wasn't mine. Thanks, Angelito, but I can't. Okay, I won't give it to you, but can you earn it yourself? See, around the corner at the funeral home, you'll find Don Tobias. I'm supposed to go there right now. There's 5 pesos in it, so you can buy your girlfriend something to drink. Take my box. It'll only take 5 minutes. Angel is the right name for him. He was like an angel come down from heaven. I took the box. I had exactly 10 minutes, enough time to earn the 5 pesos. I arrived at Don Tobias's and told him Angel was sick and had sent me. Even though that place full of coffins had always seemed sinister to me, with its odd smell and occasional mourners, by that day I felt strong, and Don Tobias asked me to do the best job I could because he had an important service that day. I shined his shoes, and then another pair. He didn't say whose they were, but he said they belonged to someone very special. I imagined they were from a deceased person. So I held them fearfully, and I finished the job as fast and best as I could. Don Tobias was pleased and gave me 10 pesos. It was exactly 1 o'clock, so I ran back. At the corner, Angel was waiting for me. I thanked him and ran like a devil. I arrived 1 minute late, and there she was, looking at Sierra Madre. Sorry I'm late. I don't know what to say. I was breathing heavily. I ran into a friend and couldn't get away. Don't worry, Jesus. You're here, and that's what matters. Her smile made me happy. I noticed she had undone her braid, and her flowing hair was even more beautiful. Do you come to the plaza often? Because I do. I shoe shine on Saturdays and Sundays. Many people think it's a low job, but that's how I help my family. There's nothing wrong with working. She puckered her lips when she spoke. Stealing would be wrong. At least she was sympathetic, and I felt encouraged to go on talking even though I felt that I wasn't saying anything interesting. I asked her the first things that came into my mind and felt a breeze slowly creeping in from the direction of the Cerro de la Silla. How I wished it would cool a bit. What will you study next year? I asked, trying to know more about her. I know that you would do good things in anything you study. You're very bright. I'm thinking about studying philosophy and literature. I love to read. She got very excited as she spoke. I liked that in her. And also that she was a good listener. Have you read Gabriel Garcia Marquez? I think she's the best writer that's ever lived. No, I haven't. Well, I haven't read anyone. Only the books we study at school. I don't have any time because I have to work in the afternoons. I felt ashamed of my ignorance of not having heard that of that Garcia Marquez. But first chance I got, I would read everything she had written. I would like to read what you've read. If you like him, he must be pretty good. The Cerro de la Mitras sure looks lovely, doesn't it? I could sense some melancholy in her voice. What I like of San Pedro is that we're surrounded by mountains. Over here we have the Sierra Madre that crosses all of Mexico and part of the United States, but it's called the Rocky Mountains there. And at the other side of the plaza, we have the Cerro de la Mitras. It was the shape of a woman. Have you noticed? I nodded. My favorite is the Cerro de la Silla because it looks like a horse's saddle. When I was smaller, I used to look at it and think, that mountain doesn't look like a silla. But then someone told me it was a saddle, a silla de montar. And there is this Cerro de Obispado, where there's that large museum, and also the Prepa 2, where we'll go after we finish middle school. What do you like best of San Pedro, Jesus? I like that it's peaceful, that we all know each other. I was afraid of telling her that I liked most of San Pedro. I like everything, but you would think it's strange. My friends and I like going to the cemetery, just out of curiosity. Will you invite me someday to the cemetery? Her clear eyes open wide, but in the daytime because I'll get scared if it's dark. I remembered the hanged man, but didn't want to say anything. It was a secret because I didn't want to spoil our conversation with my fears. And she would think I was a scaredy cat. Angel came along and asked me if he could shine me. I answered no with the movement of my hand. I felt self-conscious with Maricruz. I asked her if she wanted a soda and thought she wouldn't accept it. but she said it was okay. I ran to the store on the corner and brought two. Hers was orange, mine was a Coke. She thanked me and we drank slowly. It was a very hot day. We talked about her family. She had two younger sisters and an older brother, who probably wouldn't like her talking to a common shoe shiner. But she was the only one that would decide that. Her father worked for a company as an accountant. I told her my family was very poor. I had 7 younger brothers and my father worked as a watchman for a company. I have to go, Jesus. It's getting late. She got up in a hurry. I have to catch the bus back home. I thanked her for the time we spent together. My lip was still a little swollen, but I thanked Tommy and Nila for having hit me. Thanks to them, Maricruz have felt pity and spoken to me. I carried her books to the bus stop. We said goodbye through the bus window, where she took a seat. I kept on looking at the bus as it drove away until it turned on Juarez Street towards Palo Blanco, where she lived. I would miss her, but at that moment I enjoyed the feeling. I walked slowly down Juarez and turned right at Vasconcelos. Walked in front of Sabino's Cantina, where there were surely some drunk or other shooting people. On Hidalgo Street, some friends were playing soccer. They invited me to join them. Hey, Calavera, come and join us. I was carrying my books and told them I was tired. The shortest one said, "It's your loss." Near Don Cruz's store, I remembered I still had 6 pesos. I stopped to buy some milk candy to take to my brothers. I put them inside my books so my mother wouldn't see them and get mad because I was spending money on sweets. At Privada de la Monte, Tofo and Temo intercepted me. They wanted to know where I'd been. Tomo was the skinniest of us all. He was very tall, had a hooked nose, and a blonde hair. I told him I had gone shoe shining for a while with a borrowed box and showed my hands full of paint, and they believed me. They asked if I had money for cigarettes, and I said no because I wanted to give my mother what I had left for food. We dropped off my books, and from there went to our hiding place, which was out of the field. Crossing some bushes in there, on the floor was an old mattress, a big rock, and a wooden crate, like those used to pack tomatoes. We sat there for hours and never got tired of repeating the same conversations, always interesting. Since our earliest memories, we always knew each other. Tofo, the quiet one, always decided where we would go. Tembo proposed compromising things, that we should go to rich people's homes and wash cars, and once there hook up with the maids and invite them to watch adult movies, or go to the Salsas Barrios Park and see if we can meet any new girls. Demo was always thinking of girls, while Tofo was always thinking about work. He suggested we go cut nopal to sell, or collect soil in sacks to offer the women from our barrio. And I always followed them. Sometimes they would say, "Let's go play soccer," and I would just look at them because we didn't have a ball. How could we play? So we would go to Chons, a strong mulatto that never denied us anything. He would bring out his ball and we would play. We were always very close, like brothers. Even that day I was a little sad because Tofo had not defended me at school when they beat me up. But I didn't say anything because I didn't want to jeopardize our friendship. Then Guicho and Goyo came and sat on the mattress and asked what we were up to. We answered that we were always talking. We called Guicho Orejon because he was big-hearted, and Goyo was quick-tempered, always looking to pick a fight for any reason, but not with us because we were good friends. We were throwing dry tree branches. "Let's go light a fire to kill time," said Guicho. And then we all threw more sticks into the fire and got a big bonfire going. Goyo took a big stick, put a plastic bottle on the end, and burned it. Beautiful red and blue sparks flew. So we all grabbed old bottles from the garbage down at the stream and threw them in the fire. We had fun with just about anything. We were so entertained drawing lines and shapes with the melted plastics that we didn't even think it was dangerous. We moved our bottles from one side to another and laughed for no reason at all, just because we were doing something new and exciting. All of a sudden, Guicho El Orejon fell down, and the burning bottle fell on top of his arm, completely covering with melted plastic. We all yelled and got the bottle off of him. Then we tried to clean up his arm, but his screams were unbearable. So we took him home to his mother, who quickly took him to the Red Cross. We were all sad and went home. That same night we went back with a large bandage on his arm, and his mother didn't let him hang out with us for quite a while. I could hardly sleep that night. I saw Maria Cruz's face everywhere. I imagined her in different places. At school, when we walked together in the middle of a soccer field, I took her hand and she smiled at me. Then we went to the cemetery and looked over the graves. We imagined how the body of someone who lived in the past century would be, and both agreed that probably there wouldn't be any bones left in that grave. In another one, there would be a young kid about our age, and we looked at each other with sadness. He had so much life ahead of him, so we were sad, but walked on through the cemetery until the hanged man appeared and began following me. Maria Cruz just stood there and said, "Don't run, Jesus, it's just a ghost." But I didn't believe her. I ran until I didn't know where I was. Then I saw how to arrive to our hiding place and began crying because I was a coward and had left Maria Cruz alone. And there, on top of the mattress, I fell asleep. When I woke up, I was on my cot and it was 6 in the morning. I took a quick bath and thought about my dream. What if someday I did something like that to a girl and left her alone? I was so angry I bathed with freezing water just to punish myself. My mother was preparing my father's lunch to take to work and told me to hurry. I drank coffee, brushed my teeth, kissed my mother goodbye, and went off to school. I walked slowly until I got to the place of the hanged man. I was walking with my head down. I didn't want to look at the tree, but I remember that Maria Cruz said in my dream, "It's just a ghost." I got up the courage to look, and there he was, with his bulging eyes and the rope around his neck. He was taller than me. I looked at him, making sure that it wasn't a dream, and got nearer until I was very close. I didn't know if he would speak to me. Then he opened his eyes. I jumped back but didn't leave. He was so pale. You could almost see through him. But there he was, hanging from a large branch. "What's your name?" he said in a strange Spanish. Are you from this world or the other?" "My name is Jesus," I said with a self-assurance that I even didn't believe. "And it's me who should ask if you're from another world." "Sorry, boy, but everyone runs away like hell when they see me." "It seemed strange that you would say." He paused. "I hope you can take me off this rope that's been around my neck for generations." "What happened? Maybe I can help," even though I didn't feel capable of doing many things. "I don't know why. I think you got into my dreams last night and asked my help. That's why I'm here. Also, I have to prove myself that I can overcome my fears. But please tell me, how can I help you?" "You see, Jesus, I have been here for a long time, as I have already told you. And it's all because of a repulsive man. He hanged me and left me here when this was a cemetery, the largest in the state. But he didn't let anyone bury my body. He said that I could not be forgiven what I had done. As an example for others, he would leave me there until the beast in time took care of me. What could be so bad as to deserve such a terrible punishment? I got up the courage to ask. It must have been something awful because you don't punish someone like that just for nothing. I'll tell you, it was during the revolution. I was a very wealthy young man with generous feelings for the more humble people and treated everyone as if they were from my same social standing. When the uprising broke out, many of us wealthier folk were persecuted and tortured, even though we hadn't done anything wrong in this part of the country. Many people got together to get rid of the rich folk, but many knew I had been kind and dedicated not to kill me. Even though they sacrificed most of my family, I wandered about for some time, and as I didn't know any trade, I found work in the fields. My hands got full of blisters, and I sweat a great deal, but I didn't mind. I just wanted to go on living any way I could, because I had fallen in love with a poor but beautiful girl and had plans to marry her. Even though we were very young, we knew what true love was. But a young man from town also loved her, and one day, when he got drunk, he waited for me in this place where no one lived and few people passed. He and his friends beat me up until I blacked out. When I came to, he was putting up the rope. He put it around my head and hung me. I died instantly. But because I died without sin and wasn't buried, my spirit stayed in this tree until some good-hearted person sprinkles this ground with holy water so my soul can go on to its final resting place. Would you do that for me, Jesus? Sure, I'll do it, because I know you're being sincere. I felt truly sorry for him. Besides, I would like for us to be friends. This is what I hoped for such a long time. His voice, even though imprecise, was incredibly clear. In life, I was called Fernando. Well, Fernando, the sun will come up soon and you will disappear. but you can be sure that I will do what you need so you can move on. I will pray for your soul to reach a beautiful place. Thanks, Jesus. I'll be eternally grateful. And his words faded with first light. I walked into Tofo's home, and we went to school. Talking a bit, I finally decided to tell him everything about Fernando. All the way past Don Cruz's store to the tortilla shop in front of Sabino's cantina, he didn't say a word. He just looked at me with the patience only a friend shows. Then he said, "And what are you going to do?" Of course I'll keep my word, but I'll need someone to help me, to remind me what to do next in case I forget anything. Besides, I'll need someone to give me more courage, and I can't think of anyone better than you. You're like a brother to me. You'll see that Fernando won't scare you. I told him while I was giving him all the details of what we would do to save him. He is just a being that's suffering, and we'll save him. Even though I'm scared, I'll go with you because I know that you would do the same for me. He went on sadly, and I still owe you for not having defended you when Nilo and Tommy beat you up. That's okay, Tofo. Don't even think about it. I thought about how it had helped spark my friendship with Maricruz. They're my friends again. It was only a brawl over soccer. We got to school, almost everyone in the class, and made fun of us for being the last ones in. Tofo and I showed them a sign with our fingers, a secret swearing gesture among us, because the girls didn't know what our signs meant. Tofo was serious the whole morning. I think he was still pondering about Fernando. I didn't want him to back down, so I thought about how I could get the holy water and maybe even learn a special prayer by heart because I wouldn't be able to read in the dark. Maybe I could ask the priest to show me a prayer for when people die. I will tell him my dog died and needed holy water in the prayer. That's what I would do to keep my promise. At recess, I looked for a way to get near Maricruz and follow her everywhere without her seeing me. I had my chance at last when she left Patty and Candy. I intercepted her and said hello casually. I asked her if she had gotten home okay yesterday. She smiled and said that she had enjoyed talking to me very much and that maybe we could meet again today. At the same time, I couldn't believe it. I accepted immediately. I wouldn't say no for anything in the world. I'll be there on time, I told her. The morning seemed endless. With the math class, I kept on, and for the first time in my 6 years in school, I wasn't interested at all. I looked at the math problems as if I had never solved them, as if I weren't the fastest in the class. I thought about what we would talk about, what to say, and felt that it would be a disaster. Finally, the bell rang, and I quickly went to the plaza. I needed some money. Maybe Angel could help me out. I would pay him back on Saturday. Yes, that's what I would do. When I got there, I looked for him all over the plaza and found him in the church's sacristy, shining. The priest's shoes. I signaled that I was out there waiting for him, but he didn't understand me and told the priest he had to go home. He had to go home to the bathroom. Angel lived 1 block away. He told me to finish shoe shining the priest and collect the money. Of course, Angel had understood that I needed cash, and so that's the way he gave it to me. When I was alone with Father Antonio, I felt a little ashamed. He said he hadn't seen me in Mass the last couple of Sundays, but I told him I was going to the San Francisco de Asís church. He nodded. As we were alone, he asked if I wanted to make a confession. I said I didn't have any sins to repent for. He only moved his head. He was dark. He reminded me of San Martin de Porras. Even though he wasn't that dark, his hair was scarce. I had a jovial voice and had become a priest by conviction. One felt great peace with him. Maybe it was his happiness of being at peace with his life and with God. Suddenly I remembered Fernando. Sure, it was a perfect time to ask about a prayer and maybe some holy water. I pretended to be sad. I almost came to tears. "What's the matter, my son?" he asked, somewhat worried, while he looked at me shining his shoes. Why that sudden sadness? My dog died this morning and I had to have a burial for him. It was a white lie and I was crossing my fingers as I did it. Everyone at the barrio loved him very much because he made us proud when we pitted him against other dogs. He always won. But last night another dog grabbed him by the neck and almost killed him. We took him off, but it was late. He died this morning. "But son, you don't have a burial for a dog," he said, trying to comfort me. "They have their own special place where they go when they die. My friends and I want to have the burial this afternoon because he was one of us." I tried to act as natural as possible. "We've already chosen the spot, but we need holy water so he can go to his final resting place and some special prayer to wish him a good journey. Father Antonio looked at me with worried eyes and at the same time with sorrow. So when I finished shining his shoes, he gave me 5 pesos for the shoe shine and told me to wait a minute. He went inside the church. At that moment, Angel came back, and I thanked him for having helped me once again. He laughed and answered, "That's what friends are for." Father Antonio came back with a bottle and a piece of paper with something written on it. He told me this was the last time he would do this, but didn't like to see anyone sad, and if it made me happy, it would help me. It would help me so my faith would continue to shine, even though it was only a dog. "You have good feelings," Father Antonio told me. I took the bottle in prayer and left. It was almost one in time for my date with Maricruz. I sat down on the bench where we sat the last time. Now I had arrived 2 minutes before 1. The pigeons were eating breadcrumbs that some good soul had thrown them. Several beggars asked for coins at the church's entrance in front of the plaza. The banker, who never wanted us to shine his shoes, was opening the bank again for the afternoon shift. There was a soft breeze moving the leaves on the trees. Some were avocado trees, and during the harvest season, all of us shoe shiners competed to see who would get more avocados down. Sometimes they would hit us on the head when they fell down by themselves, and we were waiting for clients in the shade. We ate them, of course. Maria Cruz came from behind when I was lost in thought about the avocado trees. She covered my eyes and said, "Guess who?" I couldn't say a word because I felt the softest hands that had touched my face. She asked again and answered from my heart. The most beautiful girl in the world. She quickly took off her hands, and I turned around. Sorry. I didn't want to say that. I tried to excuse myself because I felt I had embarrassed her. But I said it, and it's true. "Oh, Jesus, you're terrible." She blushed when she saw that I meant what I said. I never thought of myself as pretty. "And what do you think of the wind today?" I still didn't have anything specific to talk about. Up there in the Sierra Madre, the wind's always blowing hard. I sometimes go up there with my friends and pick nopal to bring back for the people of our street. Sometimes we also bring back some beautiful flowers, and they buy them to put them in the cemetery. "And how does San Pedro look from above?" Her eyes sparkled when she talked about something that interests her. I always try to imagine what it must look like. You won't believe me, but I've dreamt I'm there, and now how you say that you have, I envy you. But it's a good kind of envy. Now that you've told me about your dream, I got up the courage to tell her about my dream. Last night I dreamt I was walking with you in the plaza. Then we went to the cemetery, we talked about the graves, and then a spirit appeared. And what happened? She was really intrigued. Did it harm us? Were we scared? That's when I woke up. I didn't want to tell her that I ran away like a coward. I wanted to continue with the dream, but I dreamt other things. I'm happy you were in my dream. It's great to dream that. Even though it wasn't my dream, it's as if I was there, too. She got serious. I think that we communicate with each other through our dreams. We're with that person at that moment, because there are times when one doesn't dream anything. Where are we then? Well, last night I didn't dream anything, so I probably was inside your dream. That's fascinating. I hope that she didn't know the end of my dream. Surely she would make fun of me for running away from the ghost. I'll pay more attention to my dreams from now on. Now I'd like you to be in all of them. It's fun to have a girl as a friend. You're the first one. It's different to feel you near looking at me. You're breathing, your understanding. I never had anyone. Now that I know you, I understand why the soaps my parents and brothers watch, they all get emotional when the characters hold hands or look into each other's eyes. I don't know how to describe how I feel. It's greater than any emotion I've ever felt, because before, playing soccer was the best thing. Bat a ball and hit a home run was the greatest. Now, if I don't look at you, I'm not happy. I need your smile, your eyes on mine. Jesus, you're saying wonderful things. Her lips puckered, and she had an enchanting smile. But you have to understand that we're still young and have a long time for us to think about things. We still have to study. We have a long life ahead of us. It's not time to worry about love pains, because the time will come for each one of us. For you, it will come soon, because you're charming and you captivate with your sincerity, your kindness, your attentions, which any woman will love. So let's enjoy our moment. She took me by the hand. Her complexion was fair, and she had some freckles, and her sweetness touched my heart. She fixed her eyes on mine and said softly, "Someday we'll find each other when our time comes." And she pulled me towards her and gave me the only and most beautiful kiss, soft, tender, with affection and maybe love. They say that when you're about to die, you see your whole life in minutes, and in that minute, I saw my whole life pass before me. We kissed for what seemed an eternity, until she pulled away. Her eyes looked at me now with sorrow. We have to go on, and destiny will have our last word. She held my hand and squeezed it, and then she walked away slowly. I saw everything in motion. Each of her moments, each step she took, each thing she looked at, until she got on the bus. I stood there for some time, and then, disheartened, I left slowly. I wasn't in a hurry. I had to get home even though I didn't have anything else to do. I didn't have anything to think about what had happened. When I got home, I tried to do my homework, but my thoughts betrayed me, and it seemed like a long time before I could enjoy Maria Cruz's company again. I saw myself walking with her in Vasconcelos, accompanying her, carrying her school bag, enjoying the breeze coming down the street towards us. A breeze that filled everything with its cool touch. But when she looked at me, she had tears in her eyes. My first tears for an impossible love. How would my life be from now on? I didn't know, but at least I knew that I had to save Fernando. I started by learning the prayer for the dead by heart and practiced it so I didn't forget. I went to look for Tofo to make our plans to meet at midnight when Fernando said we would have to pray and sprinkle the holy water. Tofo was playing soccer with Goyo and Temo. Luis came by too, and we played 2-on-2. It was very hot at 4 in the afternoon, but we liked to play. We hadn't brought any water to drink, so we bet on a Coke. The team that reached 5 goals won. Tofo and I began winning 2-0, but Luis and Temo quickly caught up. Luis was strong, good-looking, and the only one of us that had a girlfriend. Also, he was one of the best soccer players. That's why when Temo and I scored, he got mad with Temo and yelled, "We can't lose." They scored another 2 goals, and when they were about to beat us, we started running harder. Tofo scored a goal, and when we were about to drop from thirst, we tied. With the last goal, they stepped up their game. Tofo was goalkeeper when Luis crossed the ball to score. Tofo sprinted and passed the ball to me. I controlled it, outwitted Temo and scored the 5th goal. We ran celebrating our victory. Luis angrily moved his head from one side to another, and we ran off to drink our Coke. We really needed it. After the game, we talked about it like good friends. Luis congratulated us and went to buy the sodas. We rested in front of Doña Tuta's store in the shade, in front of the Luis Elizondo Elementary School. He stayed there until it got dark. We talked about girls. I didn't say anything about Maria Cruz because I was afraid she would make fun of me. They would make fun of me. I had been able to get my mind off things by playing with them. But when I left with Tofo, it was sad. I was sad again. I told Tofo he had to get up at 11:30, and he said it was a piece of cake, that he was eager to meet Fernando. He even said it was a little skeptical because he'd appeared at all, but he would do it because of our friendship. I told him that night all of his doubts would disappear. We said goodbye, and I went on home and waited until it was time. At 11:30, I was tapping on the window before Tofo left. I was there for a good while until finally I heard him say softly, "I'll be right there, Calavera." The night was pitch dark and no one was on the streets. You could only hear the sound of the crickets and some dogs that howled, feeling the presence of humans, complaining that we were out on the streets so late. Tofo was in a good mood. At last, I'm going to meet a ghost. He rubbed his hands and his eyes glowed in the dark. I know no one will never tell me that what they're like. Please don't get scared. I was a little worried that when he saw Fernando, he would run, always, as I did the first time I saw him. Promise you won't run. How can you say that, Calavera? He said seriously while he tried to comb his hair with his fingers. We're always together. We'll stick this out together too. I trust you. That's why I asked you to come. I tried to give him courage. Although I had my doubts, I also want you as a witness in case I tell the other guys. You can assure them we were together and that I didn't imagine it. What are friends for? He said, putting his hand on my shoulder. But I assure you, it will be something very frightening. It's something we're doing for a good soul. I wanted him to share my frame of mind, to share the purpose of saving Fernando, and if possible, to feel as important as I did. I would say the prayers and I want him to sprinkle holy water. I told him that we would do so step by step so everything was clear to him, and he nodded to everything I said. As we approached the tree, the fog got thicker and thicker until we could hardly see each other. Dolfo looked in every direction as at the smallest noise. I looked at him out of the corner of my eye. I didn't want to push him into doing anything he didn't want to do. The bottle of the holy water shook in his hands, and I told him that everything would be fine. He smiled nervously. The houses were dark. Everyone slept peacefully, and when we arrived at the tree, it was 2 minutes before midnight. We couldn't see anything in the fog, not even Fernando. Dolfo was looking hard when at the stroke of midnight, there he was hanging from his rope, the suffering spirit of that young man that wanted to be freed. When Dolfo saw him, he opened his eyes wide, and his first reaction was to run away. But I was holding his arm, and I told him I wouldn't leave him alone. He calmed down a bit, and we waited for Fernando to see us, because he really looked dead. When he opened his eyes, he seemed happy. He asked me if he would be freed at last, and I answered that everything was pristine to be so. I introduced Dolfo, and Fernando told me that he had already seen him, and I knew that he was a very, very serious, hardworking, honest young man. Dolfo, embarrassed, bit his lower lip. Thanks, Fernando. It's a great pleasure to meet you. You could hardly hear his voice. I hope you find happiness. I know I will with friends like you. In that cavernous voice, we could hear he was moved. I will always hold you in my heart, and as token of my gratitude, I want to give you something not only as a reminder of myself, but something tangible. As you are both very poor, I think you can use some help. You see, when the revolution came this way, I saved some money, not much, just a small gesture so I could marry my girlfriend. His voice broke as he spoke. I buried in several places. Now this is the good part. As you have already shown, you are not afraid. To get it to you, we'll have to come at midnight. Dolfo and I opened our eyes wide. You will have to dig where you see a fire, but you will only dig up one treasure each night, and you have to take it all out, because if you leave part of the treasure behind, it will disappear. No one must know about the treasure. You can only tell once you've dug up all the treasures. There are 10 in all. Where is it buried? I interrupted, so we can come prepared with a pick and shovel. You are standing on top of it, but as I said before, you will discover the exact spot. When you see the first fire that will be burning over each place where the sack of gold are buried. I wish you the best of luck. I believe my time has come. So, I interrupted again. Let's get started because someone could see us, and we don't want anyone to spoil the exact time, which is now. I began praying with my hand in the air. I prayed strong, and each word I said seemed to have an echo and microphone, because it sounded as if I was talking in a stadium and not only for us. Dolfo sprinkled the holy water on Fernando's feet and on the ground where he should have been buried. Fernando looked up at the sky as if speaking with somebody. I was so caught up with my prayer and Dolfo was sprinkling the water that at first we didn't notice the fog lifting over Fernando's head. Where it cleared, we saw a beautiful sky, as if it were daylight. There was a shining, beautiful light that lit Fernando's whole body. It showed what he looked like in life. A good-looking man with fair eyes, long hair, lean, with impeccable clothes from another time, but beautiful. He smiled at the light. When I finished the prayer and Dolfo had sprinkled the last drop of holy water, we heard a chant from heaven. Everything else went quiet. Nothing else could be heard. No crickets, no dogs, nothing, only the signing. It must have been the angels. Dolfo and I looked at each other amazed when the rope disappeared and Fernando went floating away into the light and waved goodbye, thanking us for having freed him. And then the fog came back. Dolfo looked at me in surprise. Now what do you think? I asked, smiling. Don't you feel special? I feel as if I was walking on clouds. He spinned around and looked at where the light had been. This is phenomenal. It must be a secret. No one will believe us. They'll think we're crazy, I ventured to say. But we must never forget him so Fernando's soul can keep alive with someone on earth. So be it, Calavera. Dolfo remained silent for a while. You're a good friend. From now on, we're like brothers. When I die, I would like to be buried next to your grave. We will always be together. I told him on the way back home, but for now, when we dig up the treasure, we'll start to live. Get a good night's rest, Dolfo, because we'll need all our strength tomorrow night. We went to sleep that night, all wound up and hoping something new would happen to us. Next day, I looked for a minute alone with Maricruz. I couldn't wait to spend some time with her. When the math teacher said we had some time before starting our monthly exam, Maria Cruz asked permission to go to the bathroom. I waited for a minute and asked if I could go too. The teacher asked me to be quick because he was about to pass out the exam, so I went out in a hurry, hoping to see her on the way. I waited outside the girls' bathroom for a while until Maria Cruz finally came out. She was surprised to see me there. "Hi, Jesus. What are you doing here?" Her happy eyes were surprised to see me. "We should be in class." "Sorry, Maria Cruz. I could hardly hear my own voice. I was thinking we don't need to wait so long to know each other. We could be friends." "Sure, I'm your friend," she answered excitedly. "Or do you think I don't like you? Because I do." "That's not what I mean. I was hoping to see you. It could be for a short while." I was looking directly into her eyes and saw that she was sincere. "If only to get you out of my mind and understand that we can only be together until the time comes. I need your help. I have so much to tell you." "Okay, Jesus. I'll wait for you at the same place and time." Her face lit up. "Don't think I don't like your company. I do enjoy it very much. Come on, let's go. You know what the math teacher's like. If we're late, he'll smack us across our knuckles with the ruler." We ran to class, and I wasn't so worried now. I had a big smile on my face. I had accomplished what I had wanted, another day with the girl of my dreams. This time I would have to be smarter and attract her more and get her to be more enthusiastic towards me. The exam seemed very long. Some kids looked over to copy my answers, but I was so caught up in my thoughts that I wasn't focusing on what I was doing. I was only waiting for the agreed time to meet, for her to be sitting on the bench. Even though I didn't have a plan, I would think of something, but no way would I tell her about the treasure Tofo and I would recover that night. We would dig it up to the last coin. Then I could tell her before anyone else. We finished the exam and most of us had passing grades. Only 2 didn't make it. Maria Cruz has always got a grade of 100. Tofo and I, who were always competing for the best grade, got 85. We showed each other our graded exams from the distance. When one of us got a better grade, we would hold the exam up high. The whole class got a kick out of those moments. They cheered the winner, but this time they just booed us for having tied. I ran out of class as soon as the bell rang. I had 30 minutes left to get some money. I looked everywhere but couldn't find Angel. I ran from one place to another but couldn't think how to get any money. Suddenly I remembered Jorge El Chivo. He washed cars. I found him rinsing off a BMW, surely from a rich guy from Colonia del Valle. I asked him if I could wash the tires or bumpers, whatever. I only needed 5 pesos to buy sodas. At first he said no, but as I didn't back off, he told me to wash the top, tires, bumpers, and interior. Then he would give me 5 pesos. His nickname was Chivo because he had grown a goatee and looked like a goat, and he was stooped and skinny. He wasn't a close friend of mine, but I liked him and we lived near each other. As I washed the car, I was amazed by all of the car's luxuries. At the same time, I tried hard to do a good job. I had a powerful Pioneer stereo. I wanted to turn it on, but I decided not to because I didn't want the Chivo to get angry. I had Jensen speakers, the best back then. I enjoyed cleaning them. I imagined myself owning that car. Then maybe Maria Cruz would love me even a little. I noticed that my day was only 2 minutes away, so I asked my friend to pay me, and when he saw I had done a very good job, he gave me an extra peso. He would also charge more because he would have to get back what he had spent on his helper. I was breathless when I got to the bench with the name of the national hero Benito Juarez carved in on it. I quickly sat down. From the corner of my eye, I saw a girl coming wearing an ant-color school uniform. I knew it was her and turned to confirm that yes, it was her, with her usual smile, a spontaneous smile with the innocence of a girl. I laughed nervously with anxiety and fear of being rejected, of her not returning my smile but being annoyed by me. But Maria Cruz always had a smile that came from her soul. I took her by the hand and gave her a tender kiss on the lips. We walked on. Finally, the day of our meeting had come, and the day our great love would begin. "I'll carry your books," I told her as soon as she arrived, and took them. "I want to show you something." "Where are we going?" She acted surprised. "Didn't you want to meet here?" "I have a small trip prepared for us." I got excited as I spoke. "I'm inviting you to a special place." "Sure, I would like to see a special place." Her voice showed her surprise. "But I would like to know where we're going. Trust me, you'll like it." I tried to seem happy, but I didn't have to fake it, because I was happy to be with her. I promise. "Okay, let's go. But first, let's get a smoothie." And we went to buy a glass of ice with natural fruit that in those days was the novelty in San Pedro. She asked for a mango smoothie, and tamarind flavor. We had we had to pierce the ice with our straw until it would melt enough to drink, and we would finish them. We changed direction and continued on Galeana Street, as on Juarez Street I was very well known. We walked in front of Cinema 75 that had just opened and was showing Jaws, the American movie that had impacted the whole country. After watching this movie, many people didn't want to swim in the ocean along Mexico's beaches. We looked at the posters, and Maricruz asked me if I would invite her to the movies. I said no. It was a more interesting place. Then we walked in front of the cantinas where I shined shoes. I didn't tell her that inside there were many pictures of naked women, many of them Americans, and that more than once they were the muse for masturbating. We went on and turned on Vasconcelos, walked back one block and turned on Juarez Street, where we got to the park Torres, where the Little Leagues played, and where I played but never shined. I always blamed my build, skinny, tall, weak. I wasn't strong enough to bat far. I knew how to hit the ball, play the diamond, but I didn't have what I needed to succeed, strength. Seeing her so excited to be in a new place made me feel great. But will she really like it? I thought about it again, and then I saw many people gathering together at one end of the park. They were trying to see who it was. We heard the ambulance siren and asked Maricruz if we could stop for a moment. We opened our way through the crowd, and there was a young girl lying in a pool of blood. She was about 2 years older than us, maybe about 16. A man was holding her in his arms, and a woman tried to speak to her, but she wasn't responding. Her body was limp, and her eyes were closed. Maricruz was surprised and fought back the tears welling up in her eyes. The crowd mumbled, and I couldn't understand anything. I tried to concentrate on one young man that was telling what had happened. I saw it all. They were walking along, but he was pulling her, and suddenly she began to cry. He opened his eyes wide as he told what he had seen. He was poor looking, maybe not as poor as I, but you could see that his shoes, what one notices more than anyone, were old but not torn. He kept on. He was saying that she was cheating on him, and asked her if he wasn't man enough for her. She only held her head low, and she kept on yelling at her. When the ambulance arrived and two impeccably dressed men came out, they smelled of alcohol or some kind of disinfectant. They were both young, in their 20s, and passed next to us. One was heavy built, and the other somewhat skinnier, but you could tell that they worked out a lot. They got to the girl and opened her dress over her chest. We didn't miss any detail. Maricruz opened her beautiful eyes clear wide. When he uncovered her chest, the paramedic noticed a number of stab wounds in a small area, like when we play with the top and try to win by poking a bunch of holes in the other guy's top. That's what the girl's chest looked like. There wasn't much blood coming out of the wounds. They tried to clean them off and see what they could do for her. They looked at each other and we understood. They moved the head from one side to the other. It was useless. The young girl's time had come. When they cleaned the blood off of her face, I recognized her, of course. I had to know her. There wasn't anyone in San Pedro Garcia that I didn't know. We lived over by Hidalgo Street, near Parque Naranjo. She had two brothers, and I had been friends with one when we rented bicycles to the lady that had a business near the technical middle school. I was sad to recognize her because she was peaceful and noble. Even though we never spoke, I saw her when she walked with her friends from the other middle school, the federal school. They always went in groups, and Tofo and I always called out after them jokingly, "Bye, pretty girls," even though they were from another school. Of course, I also remember the guy she went out with, which I had sometimes seen in the plaza, Roberto, who lived on Vasconcelos. One day, 1 block away from Regidore, I always saw him we went to the cantina de Juarez to shoot pool. We went there every Wednesday, the only day that let us in because we were minors. He greeted us as a friend. A sad and gloomy feeling hovered over us onlookers as they took the girl away. The young guy went on telling the story to anyone willing to listen. He punched her. He was very strong. I was afraid to get involved because I thought it was a lover's quarrel. But suddenly he took a knife out of his pants and threatened her. I cried out not to hurt her, but he even came after me. When I came back, I was scared. I saw that he was still grabbing her. I got very angry, but the man ran away and I couldn't catch him. She had so many wounds that her survival was very unlikely. I took Maricruz's hand and we walked away. Years later, I found out that the girl died and that the police were looking for him, but I didn't know if they ever caught him. Someone even wrote a song about him. It was called The Murderer, sung by Cadetes de Linares. We went on walking a few minutes without saying a word. It was as if someone had thrown a bucket of cold water on us. Finally, she asked me what I thought about death. I believe we go into a different place, maybe more beautiful. But I think that once you're dead, it's not painful anymore, only dying. What do you think? I imagine a peaceful place where you can do anything you want, anything you think about. We can do it without fear of dying, because you can only die once. I worry about the people who live in this world, because can you imagine how that girl's family is feeling? What will happen to them? Sure, it will be hard, but think that we will all go there sooner or later. Besides, if she was already there, she'll make the preparations for when others follow. She'll be waiting for them and have everything ready. It's like when you are born, they have your crib ready, food, clothes. It's the same there. We must have someone waiting for us with everything ready. I had never thought of it that way. I always thought of it was sad as unforgettable moment. But at the same time, you don't want to reach that moment. The way you describe it is incredible. When we passed the last house in San Pedro, she knew where I was taking her. Now I know where we're going, she said, to the cemetery. I looked at her mischievously. So many afternoons spent in the cemetery had turned me into an expert. I knew where we were, where each grave was. From the oldest to the most recent. How many men there were, how many women, how many were young, how many old. Sometimes we classify them as how many were originally from San Pedro, other times how much care the graves were given. We made bets, Tofo and I, if that year they would move some graves and which ones. We knew them like the palm of our hands. Sometimes we had gone there at night and we would say who was buried there. Casually, Tofo won. We took a flashlight with us and got the gravedigger on one of our game who knew the cemetery better. When we arrived, I felt the gate open for her as a gentleman did. She held her head low and took my hand. The precise moment would become, years later, one of the things I remember best about Maricruz. We walked holding hands through some pathways. We would stop next to a grave, and I would tell her how the people buried there had died. Tofo and I would go to every burial we heard about. We all heard the prayers for the deceased. Then we threw dirt to accompany the deceased on their journey to the other world. Sometimes we placed a flower on the coffin. Other times, when the mourners opened the coffin for one last goodbye, we would say a prayer and take a good look at the dead person. In my mind, there are images of hundreds of people that I saw before they were buried. Some had broken noses, others had blood coming out of their ears, while others had taken on a purplish hue to their skin. What we wanted to see was the people's reactions to death. Tofo and I talked about what we had seen and the state that they were in. How many days that had been dead, if dying from an illness was then dying in an accident. Finally, we reached one conclusion. May God take them in his arms. We stopped at a grave with a small monument. We were still holding hands and I got sad. Of the whole cemetery, this grave makes me the saddest. It's my cousin's grave. His name was Juan Ignacio. I'm very sorry, Jesus, but I feel he left something in you. Something that no one else can do. Being Juan Ignacio, the only one, there won't be another one in the whole world. We had his place, but he left it, as we'll all do someday. I don't want to think about that. My eyes filled with tears. Losing you would be like dying. I hope the Lord takes me first. Don't think about that. She spoke softly, but with a great peace. I hope we're always together, but life is too complicated for us not to live each day as it comes. To fill our moments with beautiful memories and not to speak about some possibility that it is not going to happen. You're going to like me forever, as I also like you. Thank you for being so kind, so understanding. For understanding me, I'm blessed. You know, I'm loving you more every day. I know, Maricruz, squeeze my hand. I feel the same way, but remember, we're still very young. We have to reach our dreams. I remembered the treasure, but didn't say anything. For the time being, she couldn't know the secret. I didn't know what would happen, but my life had changed. At least I had a promising future. I'll tell you a bit about my cousin Juan Ignacio. I went on with our conversation. He was very young, 12 years old. He studied and worked hard. helped my Aunt Lupe with everything. They had a grocery store stocked full of all kinds of things from cooking oil to beans and even candy. Juan Ignacio tended the store, and I saw him there every day. Sure, as Tofo's brother, I saw him frequently because you could say that Tofo and I were born together. Tofo has a lot of brothers, just like I do. Some of them are cops from San Pedro. Sometimes they lend us their badges and we walk down the street with their badges pinned to our shirts and tell the kids to behave or else we'll have to arrest them. Other times we played cops and robbers and we caught them. The thing is that my older cousins, the cops, had guns and kept them at home. That's where the problem started, because Juan Ignacio always liked to play with them. When they got home at night from work, they would clean their guns and take the bullets out. They put them on top of the cupboard and went to sleep. But one night, one of them forgot the cartridge inside the gun. He unloaded it, but one bullet was left inside. When Juan Ignacio woke up, he went to look for the gun like he did every day and took it to play with. But as he put it to his temple, like they do in the movies when they gamble their life on the Russian roulette, the gun went off. My cousin laid still. The bullet went in and never came out. It was lodged inside of his brain. The whole body ran out whenever they heard the shot, and they rushed him to the hospital. My aunt almost lost her mind. 3 hours later, they brought him back. It seemed nothing had happened. Juan Ignacio was conscious, as if there was nothing wrong with him. He didn't speak. I thought he already died, but no. My aunt was holding him in her arms and giving him something to eat. I think it was bread. They took him to the hospital once again. There was little hope that they could save him. One solution was to leave the bullet inside, but then he wouldn't be able to think. And if they decided to take it out, he would become an invalid or have some type of handicap. So they decided to operate on him and see if he would come out all right. The operation was very complicated. Back then, brain surgery was not very advanced. But the doctors struggled for hours, and they did what they could. But that night, at around midnight, Juan Ignacio died. My aunt was beside herself with grief, and we were all filled with dismay. For a long time, the people on the block mourned. We all still remember him. That's why I come to his grave every chance I get, so he knows we haven't forgotten him. Now I know you're an even more noble soul than I thought before, she said, slowly, as if not wanting to interfere with my memories. I'm sure he knows that too. I hope to see him someday to tell him that I'm sorry he was able to enjoy his youth and have a full life. But there must be a reason for his death. Maybe the Lord had prepared something better for him than his life. You've done what you can to keep his memory alive. Coming to visit him was maintain his spirit alive. I know that he's thankful for that. We didn't say a word for a while. Then he walked in silence. The cemetery seemed sad and gloomy, but not for long, because Maricruz irradiated happiness, so much that soon I felt better. I joked about how Tofo and I played hide and seek in the cemetery. Sometimes we went inside and there were where they kept the bones of unclaimed bodies. We stayed there for hours. Sometimes we invited Temo or Goyo, but they were chicken and wanted to leave right away. We got to another grave that was clean but didn't have any monument. There was a message on the cross. The block misses you, Rojis, where I stopped again. Did you know him? Asked Maricruz. Yes, he was one of my best friends. I got sad once again. One of the unforgettable from the barrio. What makes me even sadder was the way he died. Tell me, Maricruz begged me. Perhaps it'll make you feel better. On the block, we had always been very close. Some of us had rivals in sports, others because of a girlfriend. But Rojis, as everyone called Rogelio, didn't. He was always smiling, had green eyes, fair hair, almost blonde, medium height, a little taller than me. He was very fit. He was a very good soccer player, and we all liked him because he didn't take advantage of the fact that he was older than to punch us as others of the block did. Of course, not one of them belonged to the unforgettables. Rojis was an unforgettable person because he met all the requirements. He was a good soccer player, a good worker, that had money to give to his family, noble with the guys, and more than once he defended us so the older kids wouldn't take advantage. Suddenly, everything went wrong for Rojis. That body that so many of us thought was indestructible started to deteriorate. Each day he got skinnier. His expressive eyes that were so attractive to the girls lost their gleam. He had had a girlfriend since he was very young. The girl said that he was very good looking. He lost his strength and rarely went out anymore. And if he went to the games, he only watched. His legs got so weak that it was almost impossible for him to walk. Those last days, it was very hard for him to come out. When we called on him, his mother would say that he wasn't going out. That's when the rumor started that Rojis had a strange illness. They didn't know much about it, and it told them it was very hard to cure. It was called leukemia. We were all stunned. We would pass in front of Rojis's home, but he wouldn't even look out. We wanted to say hi, but we thought his mother would not let us in. We didn't know why. We couldn't get the courage to go. Suddenly, Tofo told us, we have to see him. He's our friend. So Gallo, Temo, Tofo, and I went. Rojis's mother was very kind and let us in and brought him chairs for us. There was Rojis, but he was unrecognizable. He hardly had any hair left. His eyes were sunken, and his arms, that used to be so strong, were now very skinny, almost to the bone. He was glad we went, but he was so weak. He asked us how the Barrios team had done, the Liverpool, if we had won the last games and now our group of unforgettable was. We told him we would try to be like our ancestors, but that we would never match the powerness. His mother said that he was tired, and we understood and left. We went to smoke and stayed there until it was night. We scarcely said a word. We didn't want to talk about it, but if they needed something to donate blood to help his family, we will do everything we could to help him. We all agreed that. The next day, when classes were over, we heard that the news even before we got to our street. Rogelio Saucedo, Rojis, had died. May he rest in peace. All the kids in the barrio remember him fondly. There are so many memories that we can never forget him. That's why we come here to say hi, so he knows we haven't forgotten him. I hope he has found his way to heaven, Maricruz said softly. I will also pray for him to find his way there. Thanks, Maricruz. You will always be my best friend. I looked into her eyes. I don't care what may happen tomorrow. I will always remember this day as the last day of my happiness if I don't have a chance to see you again. Tomorrow's the last day of school, and our ways may part. Always remember that my heart belongs to you, and that wherever I am, I'll be thinking of you. I can't say what I'll feel tomorrow either, but at this moment I'm very confused. I only know that I really like you, and I would like to spend the last day of my life with you. At first, I didn't know what to do, but then I got myself together, took her by the waist, and gave her a tender kiss on the mouth. I didn't care where we were. I felt the urge, and I did so, asking forgiveness for all the deceased, but they would understand because there was never a love as great as ours. Not even Romeo and Juliet's love compared to. Maricruz leaned back and softly whispered, I love you. I felt like fainting, but I mustered enough courage. We walked back to where Maricruz took the bus home. I went on singing and jumping to mine as I passed in front of Tofos' home. I remember the treasure we had to recover. I went inside the kitchen and there was my Aunt Lupe. I asked for Tofo and she told me he was feeding the pigs and to go help him. On more than one occasion, I helped them catch the pigs to kill them. They used to use the old technique of running after them until they got tired. Then we would grab them by their face up, and my uncle, Don Polo, would stab them right in the heart. More than once he missed, and we would end all full of blood while the animal bled to death. On those occasions, he said it was our fault because he didn't hold the pig down strong enough. I told Tofo feeding the pigs left over from a large tray that the neighbors gave my aunt. I grabbed some pieces and started helping. He was surprised to see me. What are you doing here so early? He asked. We need to talk. It's about the treasure. You're still on, aren't you? Sure, Calavera. I really want to get my hands on that treasure. That's exactly why that's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. His eyes were wide in excitement. I think it's not the time to do so because we're still very young. What could we do with the money? Maybe the government would take it away, or someone else. What if we leave it there until we're older? You and I will do it. I would like it to be as soon as possible. He looked worried. What would happen if someone discovers it for us? I don't think so. Remember, Fernando said it would have to be a fair soul. And who else but us helped him to leave in peace? Besides, it would not be long. Just about 4 years afterwards, we could split the money, and each of us will live as we choose. I think you're right. The fool understood that it would be difficult for others to go on looking for treasures. If the government knew that, they would take it away, saying that it was national property. Okay, Calavera, we'll wait. You'll tell me when the time comes. That's why you're my best friend and my cousin, so I trust you even more. We shook on it. That treasure would have to wait to be recovered. We finished feeding the pigs and went out to the field for a game with Chon and Luis. Next day we graduated. Tofo was wearing a suit that his brother sent him from the States. Maricruz wore an angelic light blue dress that made her look even lovelier. Even though she was young, she already had beautiful legs and an inevitable waist. Even though I had saved some money shoe shining, had only saved enough for a pair of denim pants and a red shirt, nothing compared to the wonderful suits that Tommy or Nilo wore, but I felt comfortable. At least I bought my own clothes. No one had done it for me. When I saw Maricruz, I had wanted to run and hold her, and maybe why not kiss her, but no. It had to be a memorable night, the last I would be with her. There is a possibility that I would never see her again. That's why I was so careful with all the details. The diplomas were handed to the best students, and of course, Maricruz was the best in our class. No one doubted it one bit. They gave the special awards, such as the most good-looking student, which seemed irrelevant to me. Martin won it, and Tommy won the award for most mischievous. When the award ceremony ended, the music began, and at that time the disco music was in. Everyone grabbed their partner and danced. I was such a bad dancer that I didn't build up the courage to ask Maricruz to dance the whole night. She danced some songs, and I looked at me frequently, but I felt self-conscious. I couldn't dance with that many people around. I suddenly felt a hand on my back. It was Maricruz. What can I do so you'll ask me to dance? You're harder to get than a TV actor. I immediately accepted and was instantly transformed. Those that didn't know me, that didn't even know I existed or that I studied with at the high school, knew then who I was because I danced all night with the best students from our class and from many others. I, who was known as a shoeshine kid, held the school queen, the most beautiful girl with such confidence. No one knew and everyone whispered until they got tired, and she shouldn't dance anymore with that skinny guy, that Tommy should be dancing with her. That why hadn't I taken my shoe shining box with me and shined her shoes? But that wasn't on my mind or on Maricruz's. We were living our moment. We were giving each other our best because might it be the last night together. Because the love we felt could not be hidden, and even though it caused envy, they would have to live with it. Because Valentine's Day had changed. It would not be February 14th anymore, but our graduation day, June 6, 2012. At San Pedro's Technical High School. When it was almost time to say goodbye, Maricruz gave me a last kiss. It was real now. We would stop seeing each other while we were young. When we became adults, we would meet again at that same bench where we had become friends. There, in 4 years exactly. At 8 in the evening, we would meet again. It wouldn't matter if either of us was in love. We had a date. We agreed, kissed, and walked out of each other's lives. Well, at least for 4 years. What can happen in 4 years? The once reliable governments of Calderon were destroyed in 2012 by a man that became president, Peña Nieto. The people were even ashamed to pronounce his name. In those years, people thought that nothing wrong could happen. Under Peña Nieto, the peso was devaluated. People became poor, and they were before and increasingly worried about a government fraud with corruption. I had reached my 21st birthday, and like Tofo, I had continued school. We were now proud students at the Mechanical and Electric Engineering School from the Nuevo Leon State University. We went to the gym in the afternoons while the evenings were our respective hobbies. Tofo looking for some girl to add to his collection, and I had my passion writing about San Pedro. I was obsessed with telling the world this place existed and that it was a beautiful city, whose greatest treasures was its people. Of course, we never forgot about the treasure. Some nights we had gone there to dig it up, as if we already knew where the small gold pouches were found. At midnight exactly, each night a fire would blaze around the hangman tree. We would dig for quite a while, and where precisely we would find the pouch with the 10 gold coins. The first time we were so happy that a neighbor almost discovered us because we were yelling so much. He asked us what we were doing up so late. We only answered we were celebrating our birthday. The man went back inside, warning us to stop yelling because he couldn't sleep. The show, repeating itself for 10 nights with the same result. 10 gold coins in each pouch until we had 100 coins. We split them into equal parts, and each one of us was happy. Tofo quickly changed them and bought new clothes, a new car, and helped his family build a house. I did what I had always wanted. I made my dream come true. At last, the expected day arrived, and it was about time for my date. It had been 4 seemingly unended years waiting, during which I had many chances of having a girlfriend, beautiful girls that were always willing to have sex for nothing in exchange, because they would ask me. But I had only one purpose in life: to study, become someone, and give what I had always dreamt of to the love of my life. I calmly took a bath at about 5 in the afternoon. All the while I was thinking about what I'd say after so much time. I thought it would be something natural. I would say the first thing that would come into my head. I finished taking a bath and put on deodorant cologne. I wanted to give the best impression possible. I put on a suit like the one I would have liked to wear for my graduation. I crossed myself, took a book, and went to 6 o'clock Mass. That day, I listened carefully to the priest's words. At around 7:30, the service was over, and I walked slowly from the San Francisco de Asís church to the plaza. I didn't want to sweat, and I also wanted to enjoy the streets of San Pedro. It had been a while since I had the chance to walk along the streets since I began college. I had to keep 2 jobs to help pay for my studies and help my parents. I didn't want to touch my treasure until I knew I would use it for something very special. I always knew that it would be. I walked in front of our old school to remember Maria Cruz a little more. Her face was fading away over the years, and in my memory I saw a person on her bench. It was 2 minutes before the hour we had set. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it was coming out of my chest. It seemed as if time didn't want to pass. I said without looking at her face, "It seems I waited for this moment forever. For me, these years have been beautiful," she answered with enthusiasm. Without looking at me, "Because this time has helped me understand that I really love you." I couldn't hide my joy when I looked at her. I put my arms around her and kissed her cheek. "I've dreamt so many times about this moment," I said softly in her ear. "But now that I have you beside me, I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just hold me." Maria Cruz was crying with joy. "I see you've exercised. You're not as skinny, and you're taller. You've noticed. I take care of myself. I wanted to be healthy when we met again, and I can see that you're still as pretty. I mean, prettier than in school. You're lovely." When we stopped embracing at last, we stayed there looking at each other. I had tears in my eyes, and she was still sobbing softly. Without knowing how, I got close to her lips and once again felt her breathing, her fresh scent of roses and her charming breath. I felt that each kiss tasted like something special, as if I were drinking something. I closed my eyes and once again felt all that overflowing passion that I had kept for 4 years in an eternal kiss, and didn't end even when we were separated. But that continued when we talked. When we looked at each other in silence, our souls were joined as one. "Tell me about your life," I asked her, trying to reconstruct the time without her. "Have you made your dreams reality?" "Thank God I have. Everything has been perfect. I'm about to receive a scholarship for a university in the United States. I think I'll be leaving soon. I haven't had a boyfriend, in case you were planning on asking, and of course I've thought about you. Sometimes so much that I felt I didn't want to wait anymore. But I thought it would be more romantic to see you until today. Of course I do things we used to do together. I walk a lot on the streets of San Pedro. I visit our bench and bring flowers to our friends, Rojis and Juan Ignacio, on their birthdays. I want you to know that I don't want to leave you ever. And this flower I brought is so you can keep it for all your life, because I've cried a lot on it. I've kissed it, and it's the same flower you gave me. I had it treated so it will last for many years. I want you to also kiss it when you're not near. To hug it, and when I'm not with you, even though that will be hard, because from now on I don't ever want to be far from you. I also have a surprise for you," I told her tenderly. "Remember the dreams we had when we were younger? To write something about San Pedro? At last I managed to publish it after many attempts, using some money that came from me from heaven. This is the first book printed, and it's called The Secrets of San Pedro. I hope you like it. If you do, it will make me very happy, because I wrote it only to make you happy. So you'll remember me with something you can feel and touch. And when you read this book, you'll be able to see the San Pedro we all love and made us meet and fall in love. Thanks, Jesus. I'm very proud to be the first one reading your book. I also know I'll like it, because I'll learn more about you, and I want to know everything there is to know, your dreams, your thoughts. I loved you more than you could ever imagine." The end.